Coming up today, we're planting leeks. We're going to get some parsnips in the ground, bok choy, and even some radishes, plus more. All that coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored in part by, for all your non-GMO, heirloom, organic, vegetable, flowers, and herb seeds, visit dollarseed.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil, retains moisture and adds nutrients, which equals less watering. Available in Sioux organic seed starting kits, pre-filled trays and pots, bag and bulk. Visit SiouxCompost.com. Organic fertilizer for the health-conscious organic home gardener. Family owned and operated. Visit thewiveggardener.com. Don't poison your soil with municipal water. Attach a body, mind, and soil hose and filter. Free shipping exclusively through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Just click on the body, mind, and soil icon. Authentic Haven brand soil conditioner for the home gardener. Easy to brew, 100% organic. Visit ManureTea.com. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. Well, we've got our leeks here that we started way back in January. Now, not all of these will go in the ground. Not all of these are good enough to go in the ground. We planted a little crazy, probably somewhere around 1,000 or so leeks. We had seeds that we had saved from last year. In addition, we used fresh seeds this year. So we're going to take the best of the best here, and the rest will end up being composted. Again, much like the onions that we planted in a previous episode, we started them in a 10 by 20 flat, which worked excellent because we had adequate soil from Sioux Professional Potting Soil, and we were able to keep the adequate amount of moisture in the soil for the leeks to thrive to the point of maturity to where they are now, that they can be planted in the ground. Now let's talk about the preparation of the soil that we have here. This is where our old tomato bed used to be. Really is not important, but the important part of what we've got here is we've got a thick layer of mulch, of leaves here that we brought in from our compost piles that we had last year. And the soil is very loose, very moist because of the retention of moisture that these leaves have allowed the moisture to stay in the ground. So what we're going to do, leeks can be planted in two different methods. Now, the point of the leek, or the edible portion of the leek, is the bottom root portion, that white bleached out portion. The top greens are not edible, and they're just used to allow the plant to bulb, to get that good thick stalk on it. So what we have here is, you can see the amount of roots that, because of this, the way this was planted, we've just got roots upon roots upon roots, which is good. Now again, just like we did with the onions, we kept this moistened with good water. With addition to using moo-poo tea every week, we would water it with moo-poo tea, which allowed the leeks to bulk up and get good roots here. So what we'll do is we'll just tear apart a little block here and plant them. Now the way you can plant leeks, as I was talking about, there's two different methods. One is you dig a trench and you lay your leek in the trench, and as the soil falls on top of it, and the leek will begin to grow vertical, and you'll have a good bleach portion, which that's fine if you want to do it that way. We're going to do it a different way, which is called creating dibbles or holes. There are made different devices that you can purchase online to make these holes. I'm using just a piece of metal decorative device. It was a post of some sort. So what you want to do is plant your leeks 8 to 10 inches apart. These leeks will most likely and can stay in the ground up to the first really, really cold snap of the winter. If you're in a more mild climate, you would plant these in the winter and harvest them over the early spring, summer months. So I'll just demonstrate here. We've got a couple of we've got a measuring device here so we can get these spaced properly. You don't want to trim the tops off on these leeks. Onions, we trimmed them off to spur more growth on them.
These leeks here are perfectly fine the way they are. If you cut the tops off, that's going to hurt them. Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to start right here with leeks. Try to get some of the rocks out of the way. We'll plant the leeks and we'll come back in with the leaves and mulch around them like I did with the onions. So we'll take our dibber, our custom homemade dibber. Now you could use a handle or any device, but we're just going to start. Let's go here. We'll start here, and all we're doing is we're making a hole about 4 or 5 inches deep here. So we're going to take one of these leeks. We're going to take this whole grouping of very mature leeks here, and there's no finessing about it. You're going to tear roots, and there we go. It's not a bad little grouping. Now, some of these smaller ones here, those are compost material. Not a bad group there. Okay, so we'll just find a good leek here. There we go. Again, the portions as it grows, the bottom portion, if you can keep the soil around the base of it, you're going to bleach that bottom portion. That's the edible portion of it. So we're just going to stick it in the hole here, get the roots the best we can in the hole. There we go. And that's it, just leave it be. Once we get done planting these, we'll come back in and water. Now what the water will do will gradually make dirt fall on the roots, and then these roots will begin to bulk up and everything under the soil will be that bleached part. So this can be a very tedious process, but it's a well worth process at the end result. These will take 130 to 150 days in full sunlight, and you'll have really good leeks. And we've been very successful at growing leeks in this form and in this fashion for many years now. So we're going to go ahead and fill this bed here in, which is about 5 foot wide and 5 foot long in this particular garden. So this is what I'll do every 8 to 10 inches. I'm going to go 8 inches because I want to pack as many in here as possible. Dibble a hole, put the seed in, and then go ahead and once I get done, backfill around with a little bit of leaves to hold that moisture in. Soil preparation, just normal average soil. These things will do very well in. pH, if you're concerned about that, 6 to 6.5 will be just fine. So I'm just going ahead and up and down, up and down. The space in between the rows, I'm going to give them, let's see here, I'm going to give them a foot between rows to get nice spacing on these. So that's what I'll do, and then we'll get these watered in once I get them all planted. All right, so I've got this bed prepped here, and we got, it's about 25 square feet. We've got 42 leeks in it. Now the tendency would be to put it in the ground and put dirt around it. You don't have to do that, because as we water, the water will fall around the roots. And what little bit of water you put in there, it's going to eventually cover the roots. So you don't need to cover the roots when you plant like you would with a normal plant. So these will take 130 to 150 days to reach maturity. They can sit in the garden all summer long and even into early fall and even winter. If you leave these in until next spring, they will put a seed pod on and you can get more leeks that way. So obviously we have a lot of leeks left over. If we only planted 42 of them, we've got a lot of leeks left over. We're going to plant some in the small garden, some of the sister-in-law's garden, and we're going to put some in containers. So planting leeks, if you have not got leeks already started, it's far too late to do that here in the northern portions of the United States. Go ahead and purchase some at your local garden center. Unlike onions, it doesn't matter which variety you get. These are American flag leeks. They're an heirloom variety. There's no such thing as an early, mid or long day, short day, or neutral day leek. They're all the same. They will grow equally no matter where you're at in the world. Every garden has a particular area, and this is ours. If you don't, you're very fortunate. What I'm talking about is an area that is very densely packed with soil, and we're trying to amend it. This is our area. This is our raised berm. Out of the 24 raised bermed areas that we garden in this particular large garden, this is the worst. And we've noticed this over the last couple of years. It's very clay, very dense soil. We incorporated or had a compost pile with mulched leaves and kitchen scraps, and that's what we moved off the bed just recently here to figure out and see how much more help this particular area needs.
Well, it needs more help. So here's one thing we're going to do. One, we're going to incorporate compost into the bed. But in addition to help break up that clay dense soil, we're going to use ordinary sand. This is, you can find this at your, any store. If you're next to a beach or an area where you can get it for free, that works as well. Now, we're not going to incorporate tons of it, but what I'm going to do is, cover the top pretty good, and then I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to wait until I get compost and then kind of work this all in. And in addition, I'm going to bring in some organic fertilizer and work in this bed as well. And there's a lot of worms in this bed as I've kind of mixed up what little bit of compost or the pile that I had with the leaves. But I'm just going to cover this to help kind of work the sand down into the pile to help break up that clay and that dense soil so I can get more of a loam so the plants grow a little bit better. So it's time to plant parsnips, which maybe we're about 2 weeks later than what we should be. Now, we started parsnips indoors much earlier in the year with, we're not really sure why it didn't succeed the way we thought it should. We actually have two parsnips come up, but nevertheless it made us feel good when we planted these about a month ago. So parsnips take about 110 to 120 days to reach maturity. They can sit in the garden all year long, but if you don't harvest them by early spring the following year, they will reduce their tuber, their root, and focus all their growth on producing seeds. And then you've got seeds everywhere. Now, parsnips are a very flat looking seed. They're as light as air and they'll fly everywhere. If you don't have the space, don't grow parsnips. Purchase them at your local farmer's market, because these will set in this particular bed for the next probably 7 to 9 months. So what we're going to do here is we're going to plant these on 3-inch centers. Now, I've made this marker board here. It can be as simple or as elaborate as you choose it to be. You don't even have to have this. You can use a tape measure. We've got 3, 6, 9 in foot, and the bed is approximately a little more than 3 foot, or right at 3 foot here wide. So the way you want these to be spaced is every 3 inches, we're going to put 4 seeds. Now, parsnip seeds are viable for 1 year, so you want to buy new seeds each year. Well, I have a hard time throwing old seeds away, so what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 seed of new parsnips, 1 seed of 1-year-old, and 2 seeds of 2-year-old parsnips in each hole to guarantee us a parsnip to grow in every spot that we have. Now, we've got a bed here that's 10 foot long by a little over 3 foot wide, which would be about 30 square feet. We're going to split this bed in half. We're going to do bok choy and radishes on this end, and we're going to focus this top half here strictly with parsnips. Parsnips will grow in partial shade or full sun. Keep in mind, if they grow in partial shade, they're going to mature slower than they will in full sun. 4 to 6 hours is the equivalent of what partial shade means. So what I'm going to do here, you can grow these in square foot method. I don't recommend it. Based on the sources you check out online, they will say to put 9, and in some sources that I've checked out, 16 parsnips per square foot. That seems an excessive amount. These parsnips will get to be 2 to 3 inches in diameter. For example, if we have one planted right there, it will get, you have to imagine the size of a baseball to be a good reference, and the top growth will get 16 to 20 inches, maybe 24 inches tall. So you want to have adequate space for these things to mature in your garden bed. If you have very dense clay soil, you can amend it with compost. You can amend it with sand to help break that up. We have very good tilth soil, or very good loose soil in this area, and I decided not even to dig this bed up, but because of the success it was last year, we're just going to plant right into it and then allow the parsnips to look for the nutrients they need. Parsnips, you don't want to add a lot of nitrogen because they will begin to fork. They'll put a lot of fingers on.
So you want to have adequate nutrients in the soil. Based on who you talk to and what scientists are debating, plants need many nutrients. We have the basic NPK, nitrogen, potassium, phosphate. If you're in the midliner type of gardening, that particular method says you need 13. Other gardeners will say you need multiple nutrients of trace minerals and minerals in the soil. But everybody agrees that the plants only get 2 types of nutrients above the ground: sunlight and carbon dioxide. Everything else comes from the soil, so we need to make sure the plants have as much nutrients in the soil as they can with compost and organic fertilizer and soil conditioners. So we're going to sit here. I set this up here. I'm going to come 6 inches off the fence here, off the edge of the bed, and I'm going to put my 2x4 here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the edge here with the hoe, and we're going to plant them approximately a ½ inch deep. This will give me a good straight edge. And then we're just going to put 4 seeds in every 3 inches to guarantee us some really good parsnips. All right, so I've got all of my parsnips planted here. I've marked them for an important reason. The 2 that we had that did grow, I went ahead and put in the ground there. Now, we planted them on 3-inch centers. Now, when they mature, when they germinate, that's going to take 21 days. You can pre-soak these for 24 hours to help that germination process. Once they emerge, we'll thin them down to 1 per every 6 inches. That will be their final spacing. You're gonna pull up some of the good ones, but you're gonna need that spacing in order for these plants to have adequate growing space. So I'm just gonna cover these up here. We did add a few more than just 4 or 5 seeds. The seeds that we knew were no good, we went ahead and put in pretty heavy just to get rid of them instead of, with the off chance that one of them may sprout. So what we're gonna do between these rows, if these take 21 days to germinate, radishes take about 25 to 33 days to grow to maturity to harvest. So what we're going to do is do a little intercropping, taking and splitting the difference between the parsnips and planting radishes. Just any old variety of radish you want. We're going to do some Easter egg variety. We're going to do some champion radishes. We're just going to space them every 3 inches. It's really simple to do, but that way we can maximize our growing space even more by utilizing the space between them, and we're not going to hurt anything because the parsnips are really not going to be up, and the radishes will be out by the time the parsnips are really going to start growing. So just really simple, just going to put them in the ground here and space them every 2 inches, get these planted, then we'll talk about planting bok choy and some of the places you want to or may consider growing them. Again, with the radishes, they can be grown in partial shade. Since they're a quick grow, we're going to acquire a lot of sunlight in the morning. We should be pretty good for these, the quick time that it takes for them to grow. All right, so we got our radishes planted, worked out real well. Now, bok choy, it's an Asian green. Some people say it's some of the best or the most nutrient-based or dense food in the world. 30 days to 50 days. 30 days for baby bok choy, 50 days for full-grown bok choy or bok choy. Now we're in partial shade. It can handle partial shade 4 to 6 hours. In addition to that, we're going to space it about 4 inches apart. It's going to get, if everything goes well, 8 inches tall. Really good green, whether to eat raw or use in stir fry. It is part of the cabbage family, so the seeds look much like cabbage seeds. And we're just going to plant here in a grid form. Now 4 to 6 hours, or 4 to 5 hours, 4 to 6 hours partial shade, we're backside of the garden. Works real good. Now different places has indicated that you may be able to get away from that 4 to 6 hours and it will work in 2 hours of sunlight or just ambient sunlight. So I'm going to get some of these planted here and then we're going to go up under the tree and talk about maybe one way that we can skirt around this to where we can get even more bok choy grown in a very low light situation. So with this being, I'm not going to mark these because I'm not going to plant anything between them. Just basically grid them out. I'm going to go 1/2 inch deep, 4 inches from row to row, and spacing them about 4 inches. It's really simple to do, nothing too difficult. But again, these are not going to be something you're going to grow during the heat of the summer, because these will go to seed because of the duration of the days. So I'll get these planted and then we'll head up under the tree. So right now the tree is bearing no leaves, but in about a month we will have full foliage on that tree. Right here is where we had our little bed of herbs last year. The parsley did really good throughout the summer. So based on the sources that I've seen online with the bok choy, 30 days to 50 days, we should be right kind of in that window to allow this bed here to have enough sunlight. As the sun cascades over the east to west sky, it'll illuminate enough light in here that it should work quite well. So we've prepped this bed, put some coffee grounds, some compost in it, and I'm just going to, we kind of weeded it, so I'm going to split this down kind of the center here, and we're just going to gradually 4 inches apart, 4 inches, the seed spacing 4 inches, and then I will go ahead and drop some seeds down the center here. And that should be adequate bok choy, what we want. And then as the days get warmer here, we're going ahead and plant the other 1/2 in herbs, and then once the bok choy gets harvested, we'll finish out the bed with herbs. So it's pretty simple. Utilizing the space you have available, the adequate amount of sunlight, seeing if you can skirt around that in some situations to where you can grow things where you typically may not consider it being a space that would be good for edible vegetables. Thanks for watching. Join us again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joey Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewwisconsinvegetablegardener.com.